I want to welcome everybody. This is something to talk about, thrice a week meeting that we do here at the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center on all kinds of topics. And we are very grateful to Fieldstone Memory Care of Bainbridge Island, which is a sponsor of these programs. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, and they are also offering day, stay, and respite programs. To learn more about their beautiful apartments or their programs, please give them a call. The number is 360-689-4314. And I also would like to acknowledge that we're on the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, our neighbors at the Suquamish tribe, the people of the clear salt water. We honor them and we are grateful for their hospitality. And we are grateful today. We're starting a new program that will continue for a while anyway. John Chen, who has been helping out at the center with the Silver Tech tutoring program, is going to give us an introduction to a series that he's going to be doing. Uncertain series, right, John? But the first session will cover some of the generic topics that apply to any computer or device or product brands, although I know that you are particularly familiar with Apple products, right?
Yes.
So I'm not going to say much more except thank you very much. And I know you prepared some remarks, and I know there'll be time for questions before we're done here. So thank you.
Well, great. Good morning. I know that I've seen many of you before over at the Senior Center, and we thought we'll start this series just to talk about some of the items that many of you have asked about before. And I thought it may be good if we just covered these topics and get everybody a good level set on some of the terminology, on some of the mechanics of how your device works. So what the main three topics that I want to cover is one, what you should know before you actually buy a device. What is going to help you decide what to get? And once you get it, what are some of the basic things that you should do to get your device set up? And also have get a good feeling of what are all the little pieces that has to work the way they should, so the whole thing will work. And three, what are some of the very basic things that you should do to your device so your device stays secure? And as we will see, that your device can contain a lot of personal information. And you may think, okay, I use my phone to call people. But as you will see, there are a lot of other things and a lot of other capabilities that you can do on that phone. And you can choose to use it or not use it. Okay. The overall session, we're going to make it somewhere around 30 to 40 minutes, and then followed by 20-30 minutes of question and answers. You can ask whatever you like, and if during my discussion, if you have a question, go ahead and ask it, because if you forget it, or if you let it go, wait until later, you're going to forget it. I know I would. So feel free. All right. Smartphone, first thing we need to do is define what is a smartphone or a smart device. Back in, I would say, early 1990s, the word smartphone actually came around, and IBM was involved with it. But that phone was not for general use. It wasn't, and after that device came out, there were flip phones, there were BlackBerry phones, there were things like things with keypads. weird looking things. I had a Palm, which is a device that keeps track of my calendar, but it doesn't do any phone calls. It wasn't until around mid 2006, 2007, Apple came out with the very first iPhone. And that changed the entire mobile phone area and created something called the smartphone. At the same time, Google was developing something, and that thing that Google developed was called Android. And from those two paths, one was Apple devices, the other is Android devices. And today, you can get an Apple phone or Android phone, or an Apple tablet or Android tablets. So the changes can be really overwhelming, especially for somebody who is used to an older device. And the changes are not necessarily bad. And let me get I need to share a screen. So I need your help, Reed. When we're looking at a smartphone, we have to remember what it used to be. It used to be, I had a pocket calculator, which is a little thing about yay big, and I carried in my pocket, and that was a calculator. I had a piece of a notebook, a small notebook. That was my contact list or my phone book. I had business cards. I also had a little unit about this big, and that was a voice recorder. I had a flashlight. Next to the bed was an alarm clock, kitchen timers. All of those things are now can be done on your phone. All right. Communications. Before, we used to use landline phones or pay phones, or go to the post office to mail a letter or to get a letter. Today, that is being done on a phone. Images. I used to, and I still do, have a small point and shoot camera, which is about yay big, but that's another item in my pocket. Today, that's done on a smartphone. There's a video, so I can use a smartphone to shoot a video. And photo albums. Yes, we still have photo albums, but I haven't opened them in ages. And you see another person and you want to show them your grandkids, you pick up your phone. All right. Entertainment, radios, music, read a book, read a newspaper, and play some games. It's now on the phone. Money, paper money, writing checks. Instead of writing checks, you can use a phone. Credit cards, it's also on the phone. I haven't seen a traveler's check in many, many years. Travel, it's getting to a point where you do your booking of hotels and airplane tickets using your phone, your rental car. When you check in at the airport, your flight gate, you instead of using a paper ticket, you use your phone. It's getting to the point that car keys, house keys, hotel room keys are now also available on the phone. So that is a good way to think about a smartphone. A smartphone is something that you can add functions to that device. In the old days, what do we call those old phones? We don't call them dumb phones, right? We call them, well, let's call them a single-use device. A tape recorder is always going to be a tape recorder. If you go out and buy a CD player, forever that is going to be a CD player. You can't make a movie player out of a CD player. You can't make a cassette player out of a CD player. And those old phones, like a Princess phone hanging on the wall at home, forever it is only going to be a phone for you to get phone calls and make phone calls. All of those features are not available unless you have a whole bunch of separate little devices. So let's call them a single-use device. Then later it got a little bit smarter, and think of a flip phone. I had a flip phone for quite a few years. It can take pictures, it can make phone calls, it can send a text message, and it has a few games. All right. And that is it. You can't really add anything else to it. So let's call that sort of semi-smartphone. Today's smartphone, you can keep adding features to that device. As we saw from that list earlier, there are just many, many things that you can do on that device. So a smartphone or a smart device like a tablet or a smart computer like a Mac or a PC, you can keep adding features to it. So let's talk about what to think about when you need a new device. The second you walk into a store, they're going to start throwing out words, right? Words that most people are not familiar with. It's kind of like walking into a doctor's office, listening to two doctors talk to each other, and you have no idea what they're talking about. Same with computers. If you ever listen to two computer people talk to each other, you have no idea what they're talking about. So some of the basic words. Give you an example. If you went out and bought a record player, it's a piece of machine that sits on a table. When you bought a record player, you won't be able to listen to any music. It doesn't give you any music. You have to go and buy a record. You put the record on it, then you can listen to music. So you can sort of think of the record player as a piece of hardware. Right? It doesn't do anything unless you add some software to it, like a record. And the more records you have, the more different music you can listen to. All right? Think of that as some kind of capacity. So it's kind of like if somebody came to you and say, I need to buy a car. What kind of car should I get? Most of you wouldn't know how to answer that. You may want to say, what are you going to use it for? You're going to use the car to carry a house load of kids, or you're going to use that car to carry a truckload of lumber. Two different kind of cars. Same with a device. You need to think about what you're going to use it for. If you are a graphics designer, you will probably want to buy a different computer or a different phone or a different tablet to someone else, or if what you're going to be doing is looking at mail, looking at internet. So you need to think about what are you going to spend the money on, how much you're going to spend. And by the way, the amount you spend can be zero, which is free. A lot of companies are giving them to you. Or you can spend $1,000, $1,200 for a very powerful phone. Now, just remember, most of the phone that you can get today, they have more computing power than the computer they use to send a person to the moon. If you really think about that, what you have in your little hand can actually have the power to send someone to the moon. So almost any phone you get, for the majority of things that you do, any phone will probably work just fine. Unless you want to use it for some special work or special hobby or special interest, then you may want to look at something specific. Now, earlier I said iPhones and Android. That is two totally different systems, even though you can use both of them to make phone calls. And if you are currently using an iPhone, you probably want to use and continue to use an iPhone or stay within Apple's devices. If you're using Android, you probably want to stay with another Android. Making the switch is a challenge. It's not as simple as the salesman may say, oh, by this phone or by this tablet or by this computer, if you're not familiar with it, you're going to be puzzled by it. So some of the words that you're going to come across not that one, this one. On the left, in this, okay, you're going to hear the words byte, B-Y-T-E. What is it? Think of that as one character. The alphabet A is a byte. The alphabet X is a byte. It is how computer stores that one piece of information. Now, we use these numbers all the time. 1,000, we use the word 1,000. Or 1,000,000, we use the words 1,000,000. If you have $1 million, you have to use the word million, or $1 billion, or $1 trillion. In computer, we have a different prefix. And those prefixes are mathematical prefix. So 1,000 is called kilo, or KB, kilobytes, 1,000 bytes. Million, we call it mega, million bytes, or G for gigabyte, and T for terabytes. And these are all mathematical prefixes to represent big numbers. So you can say, in this case, if you have 1 million bytes, or 5 million bytes, you say 5 MB. All right. So smallest unit is a byte, but it's not really a byte. There is something smaller than a byte. When the first computers first started coming out, you probably have heard the term that everything in the computers are ones and zeros. And we used to call that a bit. So we have one little bit of information. And using a mathematical formula, it ended up being, if you have 8 little bits together, we call it a byte. So a byte has 8 bits. Now, why is that important? Here we have an example using a bit. So if you have 200K or 1,000, it's really, whoops. $200,000. Get back here. Okay. $200K is really 1,600 KB, little b. So when you start seeing some advertising things like computer stuff, you may see a big B or a little b. Whenever you see a little b, you know 8 little b's makes up 1 big B. All right. Sometimes they may end up used interchangeably between big B and little b. Big B is usually referred to how much data a computer can store or how much data a little memory chip or thumb drive can store. Little b is usually referring to how fast data can go from point A to point B. Okay, so in case you start seeing little b's and big B's, you know that they're different. All right, another area, let's say you want to go from Senior Center to Silverdale, Costco. What do you need to go from Bainbridge to Silverdale? 1, you need a car. 2, you need the roads to travel on. And 3, you need Costco to be open when you get there. So think of the car as a combination of hardware, meaning your phone, the system that's inside the phone, and everything that is sitting inside the phone. And the roads, think of a whole bunch, I'm going to introduce you a whole bunch of other terms like Wi-Fi, that is a part of the road. Bluetooth, internet cable, the telephone company, your router, which is a little box somewhere in your home or somewhere at the Senior Center. All of those makes up the way you get from your phone to Costco. And at the very end is Costco. They have to be open. You have to remember, it's all you need is one little piece that's not working. You don't get to Costco. Let's say you're driving to Costco and you get a flat tire. You are not getting to Costco. All right. If there's a tree that falls over 305, you're not getting to Costco. But if you get a flat tire, you don't say, my car is dead. It's not dead. A little piece isn't working. Same with the phone. So when you do this, you have to think about all the little pieces. And when you call someone for help, if you try to go to Costco, you can't. How about try to go to TNC? Can you get to TNC? Yes. Can you go to Costco? No. So that means there's something different. Right. It most likely means your phone is working okay. Your car is working okay. You can go from Senior Center to TNC, but you can't quite get to Costco. So there are different reasons. That is why a lot of times when you call someone for help, they are asking for a lot of questions. They're trying to pinpoint exactly why your computer or your device isn't working the way it's supposed to work. So, all right. Now let's say you got a device, you just brought it home, and what are some of the first things you should do on that phone? And I'm going to focus on phone right now because that is something that most people will get first before getting a tablet or a computer. The first thing you need to do is give that little phone a name. Every device has a name. And so you can refer to it and use a real name that you would like to use. Other things that you would want to set up on your phone will be what time zone you're in, what country you're in, what language do you speak? Do you speak French or do you speak English? How do you like your numbers or money represented? Do you like to use a dollar sign or do you like to use the euro sign? Right. Those are the initial customization that you need to do on your phone. Also it's going to ask you to pick a security pin. Right. Think of that as your door lock. Think of that as your house key. Don't pick anything that is 1, 2, 3, 4. And yes, I've seen many people with a phone that has a password or a PIN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pick something different. Pick something that other people isn't going to remember. Looking at the chart that I showed you a while back, there are a lot of things that's currently sitting on your phone. You can have a lot of things sitting on your phone. So secure it, just like you wouldn't keep a house key under a flower pot. You want to pick something that's really different that only you know. Don't pick your name. Don't pick your social security number. Pick something, if you're desperate, how about the city your high school was in, and followed by your favorite state park, and put those two words together. They're not related, so you are not putting in Bainbridge Island, Washington. You're putting in Bainbridge, Paris, Washington. Get some combination that other people isn't going to guess. Most new phones today will have some kind of identifying methods. Apple phones uses face recognition. Apple phone also uses the thumb, right, or a fingerprint. Android phones also uses facial or finger, and all of these devices, all of them also uses a PIN, meaning a number of some kind. You can use all those numbers. You can use all those features. The phone is also going to ask you for emergency contact. You may say, well, I don't really want the phone to know all of that. But it's not a bad thing. Let's say you're in a park for a walk, you fall over and you can't get up. It would be nice for the phone to already have some kind of emergency contact information. It will also be nice for the phone to tell the emergency people exactly where you are. So it's going to ask you to set those things up and it's a good idea to follow for you to follow it and set it up for you. For most devices like an iPhone, you can get a free manual from Apple. It's very boring reading, but sometimes it's kind of interesting. You discover tips and tricks that you can use on the phone. Now, how do you keep your phone secure? If you have a, earlier we were talking about creating some kind of PIN or some kind of password. Easiest thing to do is pick random words or not really a word. But you have to remember it. So what you can do, in worst case, write it on a piece of paper and hide that piece of paper someplace. Now, if you're using an iPhone, there's something called the keychain. The iPhone will create a random password for you, and it will remember it for you. And in order for someone else to crack it, it may take them millions of years. So it can be very complex. So it's something called keychain. If you want to know more about it, let me know, and we can sit down and set it up. Or you can probably pay $1 a month, or maybe a couple bucks a month, to get a piece of software, and the software will track it for you. All right. So a couple bucks a month compared to what the other expenses you are paying, it's a very minuscule amount to keep all the information you have on your computer or on your phone secure. And also set up backup. Because you have all of the important information on that phone, it is a good idea to back up your data. And there are different ways that you can back it up. And some of that may take a one-on-one session for us to set up something to back up your data. For those of you with iPhone, there's something called Icloud, which is a service or a way for you to store information at Apple. And it's free. A small amount is free. And you can say, yes, I want Apple to save my data. So if for any reason you lose your phone, or you drop it in the water and car runs over it, you get a new phone, and you can have Apple automatically download everything onto your new phone, and it will be just like the way it was. So, email.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here.
Okay.
That I exceeded my iPhone backup, and they, for 99 cents a month, are providing me with 50 gigabytes of storage, which seems to take care of pretty much everything I need, as long as I'm not trying to save all my photos and music on my phone.
Yeah, the pricing that Apple has is very reasonable. They give you enough space to save 5 gigabytes worth of data. And when you run out, you can find some way to reduce it, or you pay 99 cents and it will give you 50 gigabytes of data. All right, so that is a lot of data for most backup and saving of your phone.
What do you do if it's Samsung or Android?
I am not sure, but for Google, there is something called the Google Drive. And I believe Google Drive provides a similar function. And I personally do not have a Google phone, so I don't know how to activate it or even use the right words to describe it. And if you'd like, I can do a little research and I can get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I will just say that I did a teeny bit of research when she started to ask, and there is under support.google.com something about Android help, and you can set up a backup using Google's cloud. But like John said, it might make sense to meet with somebody to do that one-on-one before you try it if it's confusing.
Another thing that everyone should set up are email addresses. I would highly recommend everyone set up at least 2 email addresses. One, personal email addresses. Give it to your friends or your relatives that you treated as private. Another one you treated as public. Why do you want a public one? Well, many times if you want to sign on to, let's say, Costco, they want an email address so they can send you responses or inquiries. You may not want Costco to have your private email address. And let's say in almost every store you go to, they're going to ask for some kind of email address. So you can give them the public one. If the public one ever gets exposed and you start getting a lot of spam or junk mail in that account, you can close it and create a new one. And your private email address will be forever saved and kept private. And what I like to do now is open it up to any kind of questions that you may have. And also remember that if you have questions and if for some reason we can't handle it here, the Senior Center has something called Silver Tech Tutoring. And it's put together by Tressa Johnson, and she organizes it. And the individuals are from the teens from Bainbridge Youth Services. Right. They're there on Monday and every other Monday, and they'll sit one-on-one with you. Tressa is also working on some video help that she's developing, and it'll become available. You can also schedule a free tech session with Apple. And you essentially have to sign on to Apple and schedule a session, and you have to show up at their store. And most of the phone companies, they will also provide you with help. And also remember that locally, even on Bainbridge Island, we have businesses, computer businesses, consulting businesses that will charge a fee and work with you to solve any kind of issues. So those are also resources. So what kind of questions do you have?
Judy, you need to unmute.
Yeah. Should be on the bottom left. Yeah.
Okay. So you were just talking about the emails. If you're a private email, you're not going to get the spam that you're going to get if you're making orders on Amazon or Costco. Is that your point?
Yeah, essentially to keep it separate, and knowing that you don't want to have an email account with your family, and all of a sudden people get hold of that email address and end up sending you spam. It's just a way to sort of segregate the amount of mail you get. Personally, for me, I have quite a few email addresses. For example, my wife and I were into boating. So boating organizations, we have a special email address to confine all the boating related email. And then we have a personal one. Then we have a banking one. And the banking one, nobody knows other than the banks. So that's how I segregated. And
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
yes, Francis. And your microphone on the bottom left corner.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to point out that there's Google and some of the other broadband or not broadband providers, like Safari and Google Chrome and Safari, especially because I've used that a lot. They now have a system. It's built in. It isn't something you have to sign up for, where they track who's been tracking you and stop it. If there's sites, spam sites, they automatically stop it. And they automatically do not record your history unless you want that history. It's really been an improvement in privacy. Secondly, I'd like to point out as a personal user that in addition to the phone, there's now the smart watches, if you want to call them that. I call them an Iwatch, and they're literally lifesavers. A lot of, I mean, you all probably are familiar with the ads, help, I'm fallen and I can't get up. And they sell you a medallion or something that'll buzz the security system. And you pay $25 a month in addition to buying the equipment. But with a watch, at least for me, I have an Apple Watch. I pay an extra $5 on my Verizon cell phone account. And it includes as many apps as you could possibly use, but especially a health app, which actually will help you monitor your heart rate if you go into AFib. It will monitor if you've fallen. It includes emergency information, and it's much cuter than the medallion you hang around your neck. Anyway, for those of us who have a certain age and might have a tendency to fall as we get older, it really is an important feature. And you can program in not just 911, but your son, your daughter, a neighbor, other emergency contacts. So the items that were the new technology is just, in my mind, extraordinary.
Mhm.
And the apps for the watch are becoming more and more numerous.
Right.
Those are excellent points. And on the Safari, Safari is a way to get on internet, for example, from your phone, to get on internet, to get to Costco website or Home Depot website, or to see what movies are playing. Safari is, think of it as a piece of software that monitors all your online activity through the internet. It will be able to find out if any of the places that you go has certain logic in that, at that website, that tracks what you do. If you click on this, if you click on that, they can get to a lot of details, like you click on this and did you buy something after you clicked on something? Right. So Safari tracks it, and Safari will let you know that you can turn it off or track it, and Safari will report it to you in the past week, in the past 10 days, how many little trackers there have been around. Also, what she mentioned about the Apple Watch, there are a good number of electronic devices out there now that fits on your wrist. From Apple, it's an Apple Watch. There's Fitbit, and there are all different manufacturers, and they all do pretty much similar things, but they do it differently. And yes, these watches are smart. I have a Apple Watch, and I can be in the backyard, and let's say I'm doing something that has a lot of pounding. And the watch will say, "Did you fall?" And it'll come out with this really awful sounding beep on my watch. And it says, "Did you fall?" And if I didn't answer within so many seconds, it says, "You fell and you're not answering. So I'm going to call 911 for you. And I'm also going to tell 911 where you are. And I'm also going to call your emergency contact. So if I'm in a park and I fell down, it will call my wife, it will call 911, and it will tell them what happened. But there is a cost associated with it. You need to buy the device, the watch, and you need to, depending on what kind of Apple Watch you bought, it may have a $5 a month fee because that watch now has a phone number. If you got a watch that didn't have a phone number, then there wouldn't be a cost because the watch is connected to your phone and your phone has a phone number. But so anyway, there are a lot of technology changes, things that we're not used to even 5 years ago. It's coming out. They're also coming out with little ring that you wear on your finger that will monitor your temperature. So it's interesting times. Well, yes, hi, Reed.
Hey there. I'm wondering about what kind of progress is being made for devices for people who have either vision or hearing impairments. It's one of the things about these little guys is they're very small. And so there isn't much room on the screen to see things or to try to navigate. Do you think there's some improvement in that over the past couple of years?
Absolutely. In fact, you most likely have it on your phone already as we speak. What's the feature called, Ron? Accessibility.
Yeah.
Just to let you know that after I had my cataract surgery, I couldn't see. All right. I used to be nearsighted. After cataract surgery, I was farsighted. And you can go into your accessibility feature of your phone in your settings, and you can blow the letters up. So they're very large. Or you can have a little magnifying glass that follows your finger. So if you have an area on your phone that you want to magnify, you just put your finger into that area and it'll magnify what's underneath. For people with hearing loss, I wear hearing aids. And there are things that you can do for your phone, for my phone, to talk to my hearing aid. So I can control my volume of my hearing aid using my phone. Let's say people who have motor issues, they can't, let's say, quite tap on the phone. You can set it up so you can tap on the back of the phone to tell it to do things. You can use, if you can't drag your finger and swipe your finger across this phone pad, you can use different motions. I haven't really gone through all the features inside of accessibility. And by the way, on Android phones, there's also accessibility features too. And I'm just not familiar with all the ones that's out there now. So
Another feature that there is, and I think it's built in now to most phones, and there are also apps, is text to voice. So if you are having trouble reading the text, you can use that particular app and it'll read the text to you. And of course, if you're hard of hearing and hard of seeing, it becomes a little more difficult. But as a hearing impaired person, there's a long way to go on hearing aids, I think, but
I agree. Yeah.
type of hearing loss. It
And-
amazes me that more hasn't been done. But
And-
I just acquired a hearing device that is called a Roger On, and it's wonderful when you're in meetings in person, because it will pick up. Well, first of all, if we have a speaker, we were all in person and John was speaking, I could ask him to wear this on a lavalier, and his voice would feed directly into my hearing aid. So a lot of the ambient noise and everything, and it's much more distinct.
Yeah.
If I'm in a meeting, I can lie it flat, I'm at a table, and the only problem with it, it's too good. It picks up voices that maybe at the next table, I've heard some interesting conversations, but it is very helpful. It's expensive. That's the other issue is insurance. Most insurances don't cover hearing aids.
Yeah.
Thank God the accessibility apps, most of them are free,
The
no cost.
I don't know when you have tried the accessibility for hearing aids. There is a feature on the phone which says live listen. So you can actually put the phone in the middle of the table and it will send that conversation to your hearing aid. And what you mentioned about voice to speech or speech to text. For example, if the keyboard on your phone is too small for your fingers, you can turn on the microphone and you can talk. And Apple phone or Android phone would translate that to words. All right. Just like we're seeing subtitles or closed caption on the bottom of the screen. And you can also do that. So you can use that instead of typing on the keypad. And vice versa, if you have something on the screen you want to read, but the letters are too small, you can tell it to change it so it will talk it. It will speak it, and so then you can listen.
John, does Apple Watch do that?
Do the text to speech. I know that it can have speech to text, but I'm not sure about text to speech because I haven't tried it.
I'm not either. I'm like you. I haven't tried it. It might be available. There's everything.
I will say
My
this.
Apple Watch has about 15 apps on it.
I will say this, that we'll be getting together again on these topics on June 1st. So the first Wednesday of the month, John has agreed for the next couple months at least to get together to have these tech talks. And so maybe we'll have the answer by then or sooner as we share things amongst each other.